Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi joined by Paul Verderosa. We're getting to spend quite a bit of time together.
Yeah, it's quality time.
Yeah, since we have a couple less of us on board for the remaining days of the year. But fun card today. I actually thought the 8th race was pretty competitive. Big question, what do you do with Shadow Dragon or not? But if you want to get signed up to play all of today's races, head over to Naira Bets, promo code MATCH200. To get that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus. And we only have one other slate today, and of course, it's the middle pick four. 3 pick fours today. Make sure that you are playing through Naira Bets if you are doing so. And the early part of the card has changed quite a bit with scratches, but the latter half has stayed pretty intact. And we start with race number 1 and the question of what do you do with a horse that is making her 20th start now, who has hit the board in the majority of her races and actually got herself a stakes placing last time, and that's Risk Free, who was able to finish second yet again behind a pretty good horse in Scottish Star in this off-the-turf Floral Park.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, you know what you have when you have a horse like Risk Free. I mean, she shows up, she runs her races. A lot of times, she's got the best figures at a field she ends up in, but she just ends up continuously running second and third. And she ran a good race here, too. I mean, the field wasn't the greatest. Scottish Star's a good horse, though, but I mean, you know, it was
everybody
kind
else.
of the turf. Yeah, there was everybody else. She banked over $250,000, so I mean, do you want to lose her in this condition? I mean, you're making some money with her. I mean,
Right.
Of course you want to get the win, don't get me wrong, but
Sure.
I just feel like the numbers are going in the wrong direction a little bit. But again, she's the fastest horse in some respects in this race and probably the horse to beat. But I usually get off the bandwagon when we get to about 10 or 11. Now we're at 19. I mean, one day the clock's going to strike midnight and it's going to be right and she's going to win. It could be today, but she's probably going to do it without me. I just didn't know what to do, and I would spread in this race, to be honest, if I'm playing any early pick fives.
Which is completely fair because this is a tough horse to take at a short price with all of those second place finishes. And while it's still very early, she is currently your favorite in a field where there are horses with considerably more upside than her, though she's very cool, and I certainly have a lot of respect for her. It's always fun to see her run, and you know that you're going to get a consistent performance from this type of horse. But one of the first-time starters that both of us are kind of staying away from is a horse that I thought would take quite a bit of money in Split Screen, first-time starter for Godolphin and Brad Cox that has a little bit of pedigree, but I will say, when he has these horses that are making their first start, that are 3-year-olds and up on the Naira circuit, it's not a good number. So given the morning line price and what I thought this one ultimately would be, I kind of wanted to go in a different direction.
Yeah, and I kind of also feel like she may want a little bit longer ultimately, too. And when you look at the dam side, I mean, the horse did win in 7 furlongs and a miles, half-sister to 2 winners. And I mean, I guess she may not have to be that great to beat this bunch, but at a short price, again, I had it's small field, but I just had a problem with this race. I figured you could go in a lot of directions.
And you end up going with a decent price in Fra Diablo, who was a scratch the other day, but is going to step up and face this maiden special weight company off of that original entry and does have 2 tries at this level. The first one you can maybe make some excuses for, and then with ease last time in and off the turf race.
Yeah, I mean, something probably went amiss last time out, and now the horse has been away for a while. And I just kind of feel like if this horse is right coming off this kind of layoff, this horse should probably be in front in here.
Yeah,
so I just feel like I just wanted the horse that was in front, and maybe she will wire this field. The first race, like you said, that race kind of came apart a little bit, and then last time something obviously went amiss.
Exactly, and a horse that you can forgive for that last effort. I went to Lightbulb Moment, a horse who is second off the layoff now, switches back to the dirt. It was just really green first time out, which was almost a year ago. A field that included Royal Poppy, who is a nice allowance type, who was the winner of that race. The second place finisher did win in her third start with a 71 buyer. Bowelpool was in there, who is a 3-time winner, who took the off-the-turf Memories of Silver, and even Promise Her America, who your eventual Gazelle winner at a huge price, comes out of that field. So not facing terrible horses in her first effort, and now second off the bench, getting back to a surface that she at least has some experience on. I thought was just one with more upside, but interesting first race and cool way to kick things off. Moving on to the second race. Couple of scratches in here. One of them, Prince James, was a little bit interesting. But I think the question here is just how much do you trust a horse like Think About It? And we can take a look at this big upset win that he had at Saratoga. And you're not going to get that kind of price on him today, but certainly the horse coming in with the best numbers lately.
Yeah, I mean, the race we're seeing here at Saratoga, too, the rail was good, too, for that race. Take that into consideration for what it was worth. But the horse still ran a good race and backed up the figures in the next 2 starts, albeit on off tracks. So you look at this horse is run fine. I mean, drops here. I'm not sure that this is the worst drop in the world for this kind of horse who's been knocking at the door. And you know, you look at the race this horse came out of. Emerald Forest just won last week. Dot Stoller has won. At the end of the day, this horse to me just had the best figures, and I thought would get a decent enough setup in here. Probably get the job done in here. I know this horse is going to be a short price though in here.
And I think you make a great point that this is not that much of a red flag of a drop, because you have to think they claimed this horse for $40,000. They're immediately rewarded with the win. Then he runs competitively in his next 2 starts. So they've done okay in this situation.
Yeah, and it's not like Ray hasn't had this horse in the past either, so he knows what he has with this gelding. So I think this is the right fit and the right level for this horse. So this is the horse to beat in here. I mean, I guess if you're looking to go elsewhere and not take a short price, there's some other alternatives.
And I think one that will likely be most people's alternative is a horse in Poppy's Pride, who I feel as though he's just run into a seriously informed Printrack in his last start, who we'll see later on this week. But if his win 2 back, while it was over a sloppy sealed surface going the 7 furlongs, he did step up in that off the turf race, ran 5th in a 6-horse field. So maybe you look at that as a little bit of a negative. But the 3rd of November was more of an outside flow track. He was outside speed that day. I kind of also wonder about that, but he's just dropping back to a level where he could likely be more competitive. And I feel as though he was towards the inside at the top of the stretch and sort of got pushed around a little bit. Chuck Willis dropped a win out of there as well. Printrack, as I mentioned, on a really good tear right now. And even Bronx Bomber, who was second, was dropping from a race that was won by Win for Gold. So he's been facing some okay types.
Yeah, he's been facing okay horses. The only problem that I have with this horse is I just kind of feel like, even though last time you mentioned some of the circumstances, he was hustled from the start and he got clear, but he just came under a lot of pressure again and just kind of folded up. So I don't know. I just don't like seeing that. I mean, he's a good enough horse, and I just think there's maybe some other speed to the outside of him in here that may just press him again.
And I think so as well, and that leads me to my kind of insane long shot in here in Bourbon's Hope, because this is a horse that finished second last time in a 4-horse field behind Chuck Willis, and I know it was for a lower level than this, but he was off really slow towards the inside that day. This is not a horse that likes to come from further out of things. He wants to be forwardly placed, as he was 2 back, and the pace was coming apart in that race, so I don't hold that against him too much. And I know that this is a horse that was running really well for Linda Rice, and she's tough to claim off of, but I think now getting that outside position that he's likely to get today, given the way that he was able to close and finish second in that race last time, sort of taken out of his game, I thought he was worth a look at what's going to be a decent price.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a big price if you like. If you go with the lower connections in the first 2 races, I like that. You're trying to get some price. There's nothing wrong with that. And listen, this horse actually, a lot of times you don't see those speed horses when they break badly end up rallying into the race. So outside speed, I thought for sure this horse was going to be the one to push Poppy's Pride or maybe even be in front in here.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, just a better flow of the race for him today. Getting to the 3rd race, we saw a big scratch in here of what I think was going to be everybody's sort of free square within the early pick 5, and that's Regulatory Risk, who will not be playing today, who ran very well first time out. But the other horse that's likely to take money here is one that I ultimately scratch into with Class Act. I see that you do as well, and she needs to get out of the gate and get herself in the game a little bit more, but she's just run numbers and has the routing experience now coming in that would make her awfully tough.
Yeah, I mean, there was lots of bumping going on at the start, too, and closed in a race that came completely apart last time out. The only thing I wish is that this horse, she would have held on for the show spot and not kind of drop back late. I mean, she's going to have to find more early speed. It would be nice. And I really, actually, I scratched into her. She was my 3rd pick. I lost both the 5 and the 7, so full discretion there. And I actually toyed with putting Martingale on top in here just because I thought Martingale would be more forwardly placed than this horse in a race like this. But, I mean, she's the horse to beat in here. I guess you're just going to have to wonder if she's going to be able to get out of the gate. She may not even have to. She's a few lanes out of it today with what's left in this field.
And I think with this shorter field today versus what she had faced at Churchill Downs over her last 2 races, having that more compact field makes her sort of have to be more involved early on. And I don't know how quick they're going to be going early. I think that she does end up likely sitting a little bit closer than we've seen from her in the past. But I think that she'll have to. And if you want to play against a horse like this, given the kind of short price that she's likely to be and the kind of question marks that we have about her, I don't blame you. I couldn't pull the trigger on that, but I understand the argument for taking a horse like Martingale, who was such a short price in her debut because of that coupled entry with Catherine Wheel.
Yeah, they weren't betting her.
No.
No, so they were not betting her. I mean, on the dam side, it's a lot of synth and turf on that side. I guess stretching.
Too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess stretching out, she's going to show speed in here. I don't know. I mean, beyond that, unless you're going to make a case for the first time. So, although I will say, though, with Sweet Distraction, the horse got away pretty badly last time out, and I'm not sure what happened because the horse actually put in a decent enough run down the backside, and then at one point looked okay, and then just got out really badly in the lane. So I don't know what you want to do with that.
I think this is a situation where if you have either Martingale or Class Act be defeated, you're looking at a decent payout within the early pick 5. In the fourth race, it's a pretty competitive one for the level, the $25,000 claiming tag at 3-year-olds and up, non-winners of 3, or those 3-year-olds. And Complete Agenda is a horse that used to be with the Todd Pletcher barn, who you could say has been a little bit of a disappointment, generously so, over his career so far. And this is his last win, which we have to go all the way back to January 7th of this year for. He's just sort of that grinding type, doesn't really have this early speed or presence early on in a race, or this furious closing kick, and we saw him get defeated in his next start, and it was a start before that, and it was actually Matty Oliver's first win, defeating him with Curbstone when he was a super short price that day. So I just find him really tough to trust, but I understand the argument that he and Apollo Rising are the two to beat in here. Yeah,
he's a grinder, but I just feel like from a numbers standpoint, he's the horse you want. I mean, do you trust him? I don't know. I know he didn't care for that kind of slop last time out. I know he does have a win in that kind of slop, but the start was legitimate for him having a little bit of an issue, and he just didn't care for the rest of the way that way. And it was a tougher field, too, back than he's definitely facing today, what he faced at Saratoga. So I think putting that all together, I think he's just going to end up with a good enough trip in here and not be too far out of it. And I hope he can get the job done going 2 turns, because that grinding style here sometimes works going 2 turns. They get a little tired in the last eighth of a mile around here, especially at this time of the year. The weather cools off, the way the track plays a little bit. So I'm going to put him on top in here, but I have no argument with using all of the 2, 5, and 6 in here. And we'll take a look at Apollo Rising, who comes off that big win last time at Keeneland, a horse who is a little bit more lightly raced than some of the others that he'll be facing. He was coming off a little bit of a freshening. This was at the 1 1/8 distance, and it was kind of a standout number from him than we'd seen lately. Subsequently avoided claim, and now he's trying the non-winners of 3 versus the non-winners of 2. You have him a little bit further down than I do. I also agree that he's tough to trust, too. Yeah, the vet voided claim bothers me, too, because you just don't know what happened there. But in a way, he does have room to improve when you look at him overall in Sound Doctrine. You know, ran second with an 82 buyer out of that race, and 2 starts back, he gave way at a race at Ellis, but he was pressed a little bit there. I don't know. Like I said, for me, it's hard to take him in here because you just don't know what you're going to get with him shipping in and at a horse that's going to be a short price. Rather take the second choice over him, which isn't saying much considering we're talking about a grinder in Complete Agenda. But beyond that, you went to a horse on top. Usually I'm good for these park shippers. I know. You went to a horse on top in here. That makes some sense in here. Yeah. I want Trevor to be aggressive with this horse. I think that he could be forwardly placed in here. If he's not in front, I think sitting just off of the pace and could get the jump on a horse like Complete Agenda for sure. First time running at NYRA on the dirt. He actually once ran on the turf here when he was with Chad Brown early on in his career. And at NYRA, this is a trainer who has a pretty incredible win rate over the past 5 years with who he's brought over. He's 6 for 21, 29% with a $3.54 ROI over the past 5 years. 3 of those wins were with Trevor McCarthy aboard. So this is a team that when they have those horses that they're bringing over to this circuit, they're usually well spotted and can be competitive. And he's not going to be some great price, but he'll be slightly better than Apollo Rising and Complete Agenda, who I just have a couple questions about coming into this spot. Yeah, I mean, he ran a little bit in that last spot. At least I think so anyway. A lot of people tell you he didn't, but then again, what do I know, right? So, but when you look at that race, Predominant DeSantis, they came out of that race, they won too. And Admiral Arduino really started working on this horse like before the half. The eventual winner went through inside of him. So drops in class here. It's the right drop. You know, when they ship in with these horses from Parks or from Finger Lakes, they try to find the levels where they belong at.
Right.
This is a good spot because some of those optional races come up tough at Parks. They come up salty. They come up better sometimes in the number, you know, than they look on paper sometimes. So I have no problem with this horse in here. He's going to be the best price out of the other horses in here. He's just a new face.
And he might be a little bit more forward. So we'll see what happens in the fourth. An interesting question about those two favorites. And in the fifth, I think this is a pretty competitive race as well for the New York breds. And you have some of our old friends like April Antics and Cinderella's Cause, and now Sister Linda is starting to join the ranks, and even Carbon as well. And April Antics just seems like perhaps the best horse in this group. She's not exactly a winning type, but you can forgive the kind of class that she was facing last time, and she's been in great form for the Cantor Massey barn as of late.
Yeah, and I don't think she ran terribly considering her odds in the Empire Distaff and the way that race played out. And 2 starts back, speed was good that day. She still closed a little bit to run second behind Boston Bay. So, and she's running against horses like Ichabod and Sweetie and stuff like that. So she improved. I mean, she ran well in every start off the claim. It's too much last time. She's back in the right spot today. So for me, I'm going to take a shot with her.
Yeah, absolutely can't disagree with you there. She's just a very consistent, honest type, and she's faced good horses when she's run second. It's not as though she's running into complete nobodies in terms of who she is placing against. So I respect her. I have her second. The kind of odd horse in here is Golden Rocket, and I don't know if she's going to be that great of a price because it's possible she'll take some money based on her turf form, which I don't love to see. But she has this one dirt race where I do feel as though she was helped by the pace starting to come apart, but she actually made this swooping move to get herself into position from last by the top of the stretch, and then ended up finishing third behind some decent dirt horses in general, and this was about a year ago, but she got a 74 buyer for this effort, and she was running against real dirt horses. It's not as though this was some sort of off the turf race where she's kind of just sucking up. She ended up finishing ahead of horses that were dueling on the front end in Boston Bay and Sister Linda. Sister Linda will be in here. Boston Bay is in incredible form right now. That start 2 back not included. And I just felt as though after that, she ran on the dirt again and then was off until July of this year. So it's possible that something didn't work out for her, not that she just didn't handle the surface again. And I felt as though her turf races coming into this were just as good, if not a little bit better, for this dirt attempt again. So I wanted to take her knowing that she has at least handled this at one time.
Yeah, and that race that we showed, that was a weird race too. She was really wide and made that big move and came down into the race. So something probably went amiss, like you said, the start after that. Or they just said, you know what, we're not going to try the winter and lay her off and put her on the turf. So I think she'll get better off her turf fix, but I can't see her being, she's going to be a third or fourth choice in here. I would think probably fourth choice. So you're going to get a price on her for sure. I just don't know if I trust that race as a whole.
Fair.
But, I mean, for me, I have her up there fourth. I was more into the 3s and 1s in here.
The true dirt horses.
The true dirt horses. I mean, even a horse like, you know, Sister Linda, to me, I mean.
Isn't she the speed?
She should be in here, and I just feel like she got an easy time of it, though. Last time out, you know, we did the show that day. I don't even know if I picked her.
I think we did.
I don't think I picked her.
I don't think I did either. I picked Mia Be a Star.
My mother will yell at me because that's her name. She'll be like, you didn't pick horse my name. But she showed, but my biggest thing with Sister Linda was she hasn't shown that much, that well of an ability against these type of horses. So
That's
to me,
fair.
I kind of
She is
just.
taking a step up.
Yeah, so I just kind of put her in the third slot. I mean, she should be in front in here. Whether or not she can carry that speed against a group like this, we'll find out. Horse on the rail, Cinderella's Cause for me. Is tactical from the inside. Figured to be either on that pace or right behind Sister Linda. For what it's worth, Rob Falcone's 0 for 4, sprints her out. Naira 61 to 180 days the last 5 years. It's a small sample. Rob does a good job. Don't get mad at me. And I like this horse though has run well in the past. So to me, this horse has numbers. Yeah, you know that would fit in here for me. It's 1s and 3s for me in here, but I can see your point about taking a shot with a horse like the 5 in here.
She will have to be a little bit better. These are some real company that she's facing. And we can take a quick look at Cinderella's Cause because the form that she was in before that race at Saratoga, where then she had the subsequent layoff, she was also cutting back in distance in there. I mean, this would be competitive, and this is a race where on May 11th that she was able to get the job done, and she was in decent form after that. I mean, she finished second to Boston Bay. She then runs a good third following that over at Belmont, and then maybe you forgive the cutback in distance, but she's also had a little time off since that Saratoga attempt on August 3rd. So this is a race that puts her right in the mix, and I think that she's going to be at least the third choice.
Yeah, and she's got numbers that are fast enough in races to go back to in a field like this. And you would assume with Kendrick on coming off of the layoff, they're going to be a little bit aggressive for being inside there. So she shouldn't be too far behind. And the mile is a better distance for her than sprinting. So I think she'll be all right in here. It was 3s and 1s for me, and then a couple of them behind them as other alternatives, C's, if you will.
Interesting fifth race. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses with Sarah Bodway and Paul Verderosa. Thank you, Saratoga Water. We have our bottles today. We didn't forget that part, so good start to the week here. In the sixth race, we talked about risk-free earlier. Foxy Cara is not quite there yet, but she's starting to rack up the attempts to break her maiden, and we'll take a look at her race on October 12th. And she's a horse that I really prefer the sprint distances for her, even though you could say her better numbers have been going a little bit further. But she is racking up a lot of opportunities, and just her Beyer speed figures are not moving in the right direction as of late. I think there's just other horses in here that have a little bit more upside, and while she has sort of the ability to run her race, it's just not getting the job done lately.
Yeah, we've seen what she is and how she runs, and the numbers are trending in a downward direction, although they've stayed level the last 4 starts, but they're not at the level you'd like to see.
They're
where
not at
she
that
was
170,
at.
71
so,
that we saw
I mean,
at the time.
she's fast enough to win this race, but again, she's 0 for 10, and that's where I start to just distance myself from them. I put her
Which is
second in
fair.
here because, I mean, she can certainly win this race. She can certainly win second. I just thought you could find an alternative.
Yeah,
we both found it.
Hopefully. I mean, I put her third. I respect her chances, and she can certainly win, but she's the type that, as you said about risk-free earlier, she can win without me. And we both went to the first-time starter, who is a Bustin' Stones. And while this is a sire that has really good numbers with his 2-year-old first-time starters, we're actually looking at a 3-year-old first-time starter, and they do tail off quite a bit since then. It worries me a little bit that this is a horse that was scratched from a maiden claiming race not that long ago, but shows up in a spot where could be very competitive from the outside, and the works look pretty good coming in.
Yeah, and Paul Barrow had the horse up at Finger Lakes, for those who don't know, because he has a lot of horses for riding Valenti. At times they interchange back and forth with Bruce Levine, and they move it up there. And, you know, I did not ask Paul about this horse. I'm friendly with Paul. I did not ask him about this. I know I should shoot him a message. Maybe he'll answer me before the show is over. But the works are good, and I just wonder at the time that this horse was entered, you know, Paul had a lot of horses in, going for the training title. Maybe they just felt like this horse would be better suited to run down here in a state bred maiden special weight. They know what they have, maybe taking the chance of losing the horse up there. I just feel like that this horse has got the works to be outside. Yeah, it's going to have some speed from the outside. Kendrick's aboard. Full sister to Time Limit, was a stakes winner.
Won on debut as well.
Yeah, Lasix for the first time, obviously now being 3. So put that all together, and in a race where if you're not going to put all your eggs in the Foxy Cara basket, which you probably shouldn't, but you didn't hear that from me, I would take a look at a first-time starter in here, and Ghost Bustin' for me on the outside was that horse.
Yeah, this seems like the one draws well towards the outside. If this horse has any speed at all, I could see Kendrick being very aggressive with this one. Bruce Levine, good numbers, first-time starters in dirt sprints over the past 5 years, certainly can get the job done. We've seen him have success with the Bustin' Stones progeny doing so as well. And when you look around at the rest of this field, there's just nobody else that really jumps off the page other than the number 3 Eastern Star, who is a horse that ran against Foxy Cara and ran okay, but has 2 third-place finishes. I like that they did step this one up off the debut, at least into the maiden special weight company, so a vote of confidence, and ran kind of the same number in placing. But again, now we've seen 2 starts from this horse, and certainly could move forward in here, but the same number back to back, and going to be a short price.
Yeah, and I also wonder how much speed you're going to see from a horse like Steppenhawks, who was inside, and Red Jasmine to the outside. You know, Red Jasmine showed speed last time out. The race was a bit productive, not for me though, but you figure with speed outside of Eastern Star and maybe inside of Eastern Star, and some pressure from the outside from Ghostbustin'.
Possibly.
I mean, things never heat up. I mean, I'm not talking about a heated pace. Please don't confuse me here. But maybe you'll get some honest pace in here, and that might force Eastern Star to kind of back out of it again. So.
It's possible. I think the other horse that some might be interested in is Busia, who ran pretty well on the turf first time out, and then ran okay switching over to the main track last time, but finished behind Foxy Cara, although she did bobble a little bit at the break, so possibly one that could improve second time on this surface.
Yeah, I mean, made a nice run in the turn, then ran okay mid-stretch, and then just kind of, ran okay after that. Like, really didn't gain much ground. Should set a good trip, though, today if this horse can improve second off, and there is a little bit of pace and a little bit of backing up going on. This might be the horse that can get the job done in here. I have the horse 4th in here. I could use any one of these 4 in here for late pick 4s.
Yeah, I think my play would try to beat Foxy Cara. I respect her, but I think I would try to leave this one off some tickets, as you have a big decision with Shadow Dragon awaiting you in the 8th. But in the 7th race, I thought this was a pretty competitive field as well. I know you went to a price that I took a long look at in Captivating Cara, and when she's been in for a tag, she's been tough.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the last 3 races that she's run for the tag, they may not have came up the fastest races, but she's won them. So to me, I feel the drop suits her here. I know that last time out, things looked pretty bad on paper. She wasn't really persevered with as the favorite that day, and she ended up falling into a trip that really wasn't hers. And then 2 starts back at Belmont going the 7 furlongs. I mean, she was up inside for a while, but it just wasn't meant to be there. I think this is the right spot for her today. And I think that she could be more forwardly placed in here as well, which I think will help her. Even on the cutback, she may only be a couple of lengths out of it, and that's what I'm looking for in here. And I think she'll pop at a price today.
Yeah, I like her. I would use her in any sort of late wager that I'm including. I went to a horse that I can hear Andy Sterling in my ear buzzing about because he said something about how I pick all the George Weaver horses. But this one is one that had been running at Finger Lakes. But if you look at who she was facing in her last start, she was running against horses that were actually pretty competitive on the NYRA circuit as of late. Just earlier this year, we saw Sandy's Garden run pretty well at Saratoga, a competitive 2nd place finish in and off the turf race. Actually had run 2nd in the Franklin Square back in 2022 behind Sterling Silver, who's a pretty good horse. And then Solib, who was 3rd in there. She's been very competitive here in her last couple of races, even when switching barns as well. So I think that you'd have to respect the company that she's kept in her last start, even though she didn't really run competitively against them. I think that this is the right kind of spot for her now coming in here onto the NYRA circuit. And first off the trainer switch, George Weaver has some decent numbers. He's 10 for 37, 27%, $2.38 ROI over the past 5 years. So they come to the barn and he's able to spot them well and get them to run a better race. So I feel as though she might get overlooked based on where she's been running, who she's been running against, but at the same time, I think that if you dig a little bit deeper, there's something there possibly with Our Little Tiger.
Yeah, she's running against horses that have been competitive for sure in allowance races up at Finger Lakes, and that have been competitive here, as you said. And I stood away from it. I wanted you to have the George Weaver spotlight all to yourself.
I knew that was just for me.
Yeah, so I wanted you to just bask in it and have it, and maybe, like I said, we're after prices in here, so use a little bit of your horse as well. So
I mean, there's a horse like Vegas Weekend who I have respect for. I think that she's been really pushed on the front end in her last couple of races. We can take a look at her last win at Saratoga, where she was able to control things a little bit more, have things more her own way, and that did lead to a victory. I don't know. I mean, she can find herself comfortable enough on the front end, but I thought a horse like maybe It's Cold Into Here, or even something to her outside, might try to put a little bit more pressure and possibly not give her this easy of a setup in what was only a short field.
Yeah, I would think in here, just looking at her races and then the cutback in distance to today, I just wonder if a horse like Slack-Tide is going to outrun her, early on. So, and, I don't know. Like I said, I left her off, but I mean, I just felt like she was going to catch a little bit of pressure and just not get the right trip in here today. So for me, I left her out. Well, she's going to be a short price. She may end up
Right.
being favored in here.
It's possible.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to bet a horse like Hydra or It's Cold into here, who had such an easy trip last
She
time
did.
out. Yeah, I mean,
And timed out's a little bit of a question. I mean, you're dealing with a horse that voided claim, bled last time, so is now coming in here off a little bit of a break, and you hope that she can get back to some of her previous races where she was really competitive up at Saratoga. She ran a good second place to a T at a 4-to-1 price, and we can take a look at that race. And she's just one that she had a good trip that day, yes, but she was making up some pretty significant ground in the later stages of that race. That was at the $20,000 claiming tag level. And in Saratoga, you have to consider how many horses are dropping in to get the win as well. So perhaps more competitive for the level than it looks on paper. She kind of has to wait in between horses and then slices through and just gets caught on the outside by to a T. So I think you can throw out her last race with some confidence. It's just a matter of whether or not you believe she's going to run this race or better today.
yeah, off of the layoff as well. And I don't know. I mean, when you look at her on paper, she has that race at Saratoga that's well, and her numbers are pretty much the same. But when you look around the field, everybody's numbers are pretty much the same.
Exactly.
So you kind of have to decide who do you want to take and what price are you willing to accept on some of these horses.
Right, and Hydra's the other interesting one who's going to be one of the shorter prices. Just ran into the class dropping Fancy Azteca last time, now goes third off of a little bit of a freshening as well, gets that slight cut back from the 7 furlongs, and another one that's just, she's dropping a little bit in class and likely is going to run a decent race in here. But again, with her, I don't think we're going to see something like that 80 Beyer speed figure that she ran at Saratoga earlier this year. It's such an anomaly in her form.
Yeah, and even you could say the 74 in the distaff, she ran third that day, but when you look at that race as a whole, too, stakes races tend to come up faster anyway most of the time.
Right.
So, I don't know. I feel like she's going in the wrong direction. I mean, I know she's dropping in half in here, and the drop may just help her wake up a little bit, but 2 starts back, I mean, she had good speed. She just stopped, and last time out, I mean, I know she was last away, but she had nothing either. So dropping in half in here, she's hard to trust in here. I like
agree.
you, have the idea that we want to shoot after some prices in here.
All right, excellent. In the 8th race, a pretty interesting group that's lining up, and you have to decide what you're doing with a horse like Shadow Dragon, who was able to finish ahead of Thrill of It the last time that they met on October 4th. And he's one that seems to always take a lot of money no matter what kind of spot he's in. He's been favored in his last 3 starts, and he didn't really show up in that Saratoga race where he was going a mile and an eighth behind Olympic Dreams and Un Ojo, but then was off for a little bit, comes back, 2 second-place finishes in a row behind good horses in Aggregation and Straight Arrow. I don't see a horse like that in this field, but at the same time, once you look past him, it's a pretty competitive group.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I landed on him on top simply because I just felt like I think the 7 furlongs helps here. He's shown more speed in his last 2 races, which I absolutely like.
He
He's
has
more in
been
the
more
game.
forward.
Yeah, he's more forward. He's in the game. Last time out in the distaff, contested that pace that Straight Arrow went on and won with. I think this horse is going in the right direction in here. I think the 7/8 is just fine. I think it helps him better than going the mile, to be honest, in here. And to me, this horse in here, I know that there's other good horses in here, and I know that when you look at this field as a whole, you can say, well, they all start to come together and they all basically look like the same horse. I'm taking a shot standing with this horse today. I know this horse is going to be the favorite in here more than likely, but this is a horse I did not want to try to beat in here, and I figured just putting some prices underneath him.
That's totally fair. I mean, he's absolutely the horse to beat, and anything like his most recent races. I agree. I don't mind the 7 furlongs for him either, and I do like that he has been a little bit more involved early because he was giving himself a lot to do in his races, and I like that he's shown that he can get himself into a better position early on. I'm swinging with a little bit of a question mark as we haven't seen him in a while, a horse that we haven't seen since March, and the number 4 Simply, who is switching over to Mark Hennig, who off the trainer switch, he's 5 for 21, 24%, $3.07 ROI past 5 years. The 7, it's a little bit of a question for him. I think he ultimately does want to go a bit further, but if he can come back in any semblance of the form that he used to be in when he was hitting the board against Ouster, Overstep, who we saw return the other day, who was in great form at that time, even running behind a stablemate at one point in Full Moon Fever. And while he knocked heads with Mason Mania, who's also in here a couple of times, I just think with the freshening with him, if we can see anything like his past races, he could be competitive enough in here at a decent price. But I am not against Shadow Dragon by any means. He will have to run a better race than we had seen in the past to beat him.
Yeah, no, I agree there. He's going to have to step up off the layoff to beat a horse like Shadow Dragon. I mean, this form wasn't bad going into the layoff. And I guess the question mark is, you know, after all this time off, do you feel like he's going to fire off of the bench? I mean, he's run okay off of layoffs previously, so we'll see what happens. He wasn't for me. I just thought I would give him a race and see what he does, but I have no problem with taking a shot, you know, against Shadow Dragon in here if you don't think he's going to run as well as I think he's going to run in here. And I put perennial second place finisher Brewpub.
Brewpub?
Yeah.
He'll be a prize.
Yeah, he never wins, really, but he's got plenty of races that
I
put
love
him in
lots
the
of
mix
horses
here.
that never win. It's
Yeah,
okay.
you know. I mean, I thought the race two-back was sneaky good against Z-Bar
Mariachi,
and Radio
Z-Bear,
Red. Yeah,
Radio Red. We can
Mariachi.
take a look at that. I didn't highlight him, but you'll see Z-Bear and Radiohead finish ahead of him, but he's in there and he runs okay.
Yeah, he ran fine. So I mean, again, he's not a horse that I'd want to put on top or lean on or anything. But at a price, I wouldn't mind throwing a little Brewpub in the second slot. And horses like Z-Bar, you know, two-back, he was against the track. In a wide trip, he still finished well in there.
I don't think he wanted to go a mile when he won that race at Saratoga. I think that was kind of just a default best horse in the race in that off-the-turf race.
Yeah.
With him, I mean, I think that he really is this true sprinter type. We'll see if we can get the 7. I mean, he was able to get the mile slowly when he was able to win at Saratoga, but he's just in good form right now, and I respect horses like Win for Gold, Mariachi, and even Disarmed, who he ran into. So this is a fun race. I think you can even make a little bit of a case for Thrill of It, putting the blinkers on, who should be forward in here as well. Even Factually Correct, I wouldn't talk people off of. Mason Mania is very consistent. So even though we lost 2 horses towards the outside, this is still a pretty fun competitive race.
Yeah, and of course, like Thrill of It, just to mention, I mean, you know, the race was kind of dominated up front, too. He should be sharper today. I mean, I know last time looks like a poor effort, but I just feel like Jose Gomez took him out of the race a little bit.
He wants to be forward.
Yeah, I think he wanted to be more forward than he actually was, and he just kind of got dragged back a little. Like, he took a hold of him. Not that he dragged him back, but he just took a hold of him and kind of backed up from there. I think, you know, Romero fits him a little bit better.
He'll be
Romero's
aggressive.
not afraid to send a horse to the front.
Yes. All right. Moving on to the finale today. We have the way that we've been ending many of our cards with kind of a wide open affair. A nice full field of 13, though, to close things out. And Bustino Santino is a horse that when he was making his debut all the way back in November, he had such a rough time of it early. You can see him kind of break a little bit slow and then get crowded in on by a horse to his outside. And we'll take a look at what that looked like on the pan as well. He's the number 2 in here, and he's just basically eliminated at the start of this race, and he doesn't recover quickly. You can see he's spotting this field by multiple lengths to the point where he's not even in the screen. And even here at the top of the stretch, you see him just sort of barely creeping into view. And this was a race that was won by Looms Boldly. Lifetime of Chance finished second. These were some good New York bred horses as 2-year-olds for that period of time. And he's closing pretty well on the outside. And unfortunately, he didn't really go on with the promise that he had shown in this race, and now he's been in for a tag. Last time, I don't really feel as though he ran that well behind Kentucky Joker, who was a horse that was cutting back in distance for Linda Rice. But if we can ever see anything like his debut again, now in for a tag for the second time, dropping a little bit in class. They tried the turf a few times with him where he actually ran okay at the maiden special weight level. I feel as though in some ways he's probably the horse to beat. He is a little bit tough to trust, though.
Yeah, I can't. I just can't.
You're done with him?
I can't take
That's
him.
fair.
And listen, I don't even think the trouble was that bad last time out.
No,
you know?
I don't either.
And I just feel like he's kind of exposed now. He'll win by 10, but I feel like he's kind of exposed now.
No, he is. He's tough to take at a
and
short
he's
price.
tough to take in here at what's going to be a short price in a big field. And if he doesn't get out of the gate again, or he gets bumped around, or something happens, I just feel like he packs up his saddle and goes home, except for that debut. So for me, I just couldn't do it. I just felt there was a lot of options you could go in here with a couple of horses that are going to be prices.
And you went to Vaunted on the inside, who faced some of the other competitors towards his outside last time. But Tell me about his trip, because I feel as though there's a lot of interest in him based on that drop in class last time.
I thought he was well placed, and he just didn't really care for the kickback, I think, and just kind of stopped. He looked like he was climbing a little bit. His head was moving around, and he's got figures to lean on, and he can definitely run better than what his last start was. And 2 starts back, I don't really. That's more of the vaunted that I want to see. I want to see a horse that's up on the front end, that breaks well and is up with the pace. And I think you're going to get that today. I just think he didn't care for being taken back in the kickback and stopped. And to me, I just feel like he's got better races. He's drawn inside. He can go from the inside. And I just think he'll break better today and get sent with the Apprentice on his back.
Yeah, I think that he's a horse that you definitely want to be forwardly placed, especially from the inside. He has shown that he can do it in the past. I went to kind of a wild card that's dropping in class for the first time that we haven't seen in quite a while, and this has all the red flags of not being seen for quite some time and then taking that big drop in class in here. But a Compromiser, in both of his dirt starts so far, he was facing horses that turned out to be pretty decent. And so I think just getting that class relief today, if he can run at all anymore, and certainly the works seem decent enough and like he's coming in with a little bit of an opportunity in here, I thought he would be a square enough price and to take on that first time dropping in for a tag from the maiden special weight level, but obviously has to show quite a bit more.
Yeah, he was like 5 or 6 for me in here. The only thing that bothered me about him, because he's run against much better horses on the dirt. I mean, I know he didn't do that much running the start that before he went on the bench at Saratoga, but his first start was just fine. The 4 works bother me. Like, I just feel like he came back in October and he's just, but this drop against this group, hey, have at it. He's going to be priced.
And horses like Woodside Warrior, he certainly makes sense, but I'm getting a little bit tired of him. I know that he's had plenty of opportunities in for a tag, and he seems to show up and run well, but it's kind of just been not good enough to get the job done, though he seems a little bit more of that consistent type in a field where that's hard to find.
Yeah, he's one of those that we go back to today's start number 10, so we'll see what we get out of him. And he runs his race every single time, and last time out, I think he just ended up being way too far back, and he started getting pushed on a little bit earlier than normal. So he'll probably be closer today with a better break. Hopefully he breaks well out of the gate. You have the horse right outside of him, who's going to probably be either on the front end or sitting behind a horse like Vaunted if Vaunted gets out of the gate. I mean, he got overtaken pretty easily without being pressed, so kind of figured there'll be some pace coming from him. Wasn't crazy about him either. So, I mean, my second choice was the horse on the outside, the first for Robbie Falcone. So first time gelding, and well, I mean, you know what? I mean, you look at the pedigree on this horse, and first time sprinting. For Gormley was a winner. I mean, I know the dam was unraced, and for what it's worth, at Aqueduct itself, Rob has won for 4 with first-time starters with 3-year-olds sprinting the last 5 years. So, I mean, it's a small sample, but in this kind of field, I thought some of the works were good, and on the outside, take a price. I was just looking at prices in here because I just could not pull the trigger on a horse like Bustin' Santino at all.
I don't blame you at all. There's plenty of other alternatives if you're looking to play against that one, but that wraps it up for Paul and I. Of course, if you're going to play today's races, you'll be doing so with NYRA Bets. Head on over to nyrabets.com, get that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus with the promo code MATCH200. The middle pick 4. It's the only opportunity that we have for you today. Apparently, I didn't know plenty of opportunities to wager throughout the card, but make sure that you are checking out those middle pick 4s. I will say, we give the middle pick 4 a hard time. I have played a couple of them, and they've always paid a bit better than I expected them to.
They do. I actually hit one earlier this year here that paid quite a bit more than I expected for what it is. It's a good wager. We jest, but
we make fun of it, but it's really not a bad deal if you're interested in playing.
I'm a pick 4, pick 5 guy.
Yeah, me too.
So I love it.
All right, we'll make sure to play all of today's races. Good luck and have a great day.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.